Comrade Jeremy Corbyn, it is a great personal pleasure and, of course, a great joy for everyone in this theater who is waiting with bated breath to hear a few words from you on this occasion, the 10th anniversary. I wouldn't say of a victory, but at least of the electoral defeat of the toxic establishment, not just the Greek, but the pan-European toxic establishment, the Troika, the infamous Troika, that did receive a bloody nose on the 25th of January.
It was a victory, actually. I know the analysis that will come after, but I mean, the fact that you had made a big stab against austerity and against the whole principle of diminishing the public realm in order to deal with the crisis of the private sector, I think it was a huge fillip to a lot of people all across Europe.
I'm glad you think that. It felt, for those of us who were part of it, like a major victory. But of course, in the same way that the Labour Party back in the 20s effectively shot itself in the foot with Ramsay MacDonald, we had exactly the same experience in Greece. So after 10 years, I think, safely share with you the thought that most of our people are not feeling that it was a victory anymore because of the way in which it was betrayed. But nevertheless, we need to celebrate the fact that, as you say, there was an electoral victory against the forces of global austerity, of universal austerity, of the toxic bailouts of the bankers who not only were bailed out, but then were absolutely determined to destroy the social fabric that had actually bailed them out. And so this is what I wanted to ask you. How
The
did,
bailout of the whole thing was about saving the banks, actually. I
of course,
I was there in Parliament all through this period from 2010 onwards and the austerity budget that the Tories brought in. But before that, we had Gordon Brown saying that he would bring in quantitative easing, etc., and that the banks would be taken into public ownership. And
mhm.
I thought, wow, that's interesting. The idea we're actually going to have a government that will take the banks into public ownership. And I then sat through the entirety of the debate on bringing the banks into public ownership. It wasn't public ownership at all. It was basically a massive bailout to maintain the banking system exactly as it was. There was no punishment on those that had brought about the crisis. And the banks were then, bit by bit, and some still being done, returned to the private sector fully intact.
The way I put exactly the same point is that it,
Yeah,
they didn't just save the banks, they saved the bankers.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
that was a crime against society by Gordon Brown, by the whole of the European cabal, by Obama, for that matter. And it's not necessarily given under capitalism because, as you know, in 1992, when the Scandinavian banks went under, the bankers were not saved. The banks were saved, but not the bankers. In 1998, in South Korea, they
Mm.
didn't save the bankers; they saved the banks.
And in Iceland as well.
And in Iceland. So here
Yeah.
in Europe, both in your country and our country, across Europe, they saved the bankers. And here in Greece, it was far, far worse, Jeremy, because not only did they save the bankers, but they destroyed what was left of the social fabric. And they are doing it to this day. Let me give you just one number, 1 million. 1 million homes are being auctioned off as we speak by the vulture funds that have inherited the mortgages of these people as a result of what happened in 2010 and, in the end, also our final defeat in 2015 because our government won the election in January 2015 but didn't see through what we were essentially being given a mandate by the people of Greece to carry out. But allow me, because we are marking that occasion. How did that victory of ours, ephemeral victory, but nevertheless significant, poignant victory, how did that register in your circles, in your mind, in the mind of our comrades in the United Kingdom?
Oh, massively, actually, because we were opposed to what the a lot of what the Labour government had done in 2008, 9, 10. And so we then moved into the Tory government, the coalition government, Liberal Democrats and Tories from 2010 to 15. Brutal levels of austerity and further privatisation, including Royal Mail at that time, the mail whole postal delivery system. And we were obviously opposing it, but all the Tories kept doing was saying the whole crisis is the fault of Labour when they were in government before. Then 2015 came along. The your success in exposing what austerity meant was very important. We then challenged for the leadership of the Labour Party. I was the candidate, and the whole basis of it was if you vote for this team, me and others, then what you're voting for is an anti-austerity strategy that we will invest, not cut. We will build, not destroy. We will empower people, not sacrifice them. And we won that leadership election. I was then challenged a year later, and we won it by even more. We got 250,000 votes in the first election. A year later, that had increased to 300,000 votes of Labour Party members and supporters. And then we came into the referendum, and then we came into the 2017 general election when we achieved the highest vote for Labour this century, more than 12 million votes across the country. The establishment didn't like this. They thought we were getting too popular and too effective. And they started a lot of personal attacks on me, attempting to isolate me from our comrades and supporters. And what they also did was manage to divide and encourage the right in the Labour Party to continue their undermining and attacks on us. And then we went into the 2019 election, which we were forced into, and we still got a higher vote than Labour has achieved in 2024. We still got a higher vote than been achieved by Gordon Brown or Tony Blair in previous elections in 2019, despite, because of the first past the post system, losing quite heavily. So what's now happening is there's a growing left movement in this country that came together supporting the postal workers, the rail workers, the teachers, particularly in the recent industrial actions. And in Parliament, a group of us were elected as independents. We've just come from Parliament where we've been considering the implications of the ceasefire that may or may not happen over this weekend. But it does mean we need new voices. And so we're bringing together all the independents all around the country. And through the Peace and Justice Project, we have produced a lot of campaigning material. We produced a number of books, and we're doing campaigning on what we call the five big demands, which are essentially peace and anti-poverty demands in our society. So we're standing up against the, this is one of our books. Indeed, you would recognize it because you took part in it. You wrote part of it, so thank you very much, all those that took part in this book. It exposes the power of the arms trade. We are part of and so are you, part of a global movement for peace, for justice, but also to oppose the rise of the far right and racism across Europe.
Progressive International. Let's
You think the far right in Spain, the far right in France, the far right in Germany, far right in Austria, far right in Italy, far right in Hungary, far right in Greece. They make the most appalling, abominable, ludicrous statements about the alleged problem of refugees and asylum seekers in our society. The conservative parties are then frightened for their base, so they move to the right to support a new political dimension. And in doing that, they then leave a space in the centre. The socialist parties then all move a bit with their language to assuage this demand from the far right about asylum seekers and refugees. And what's left? A disenfranchised, underrepresented working class that's absolutely a prey to the simplistic, dangerous message of the far right, be it AfD in Germany, be it Reform Party in Britain, National Front in France, whatever it happens to be called, or in your case, you had Golden Dawn, all making these simplistic messages. There has to be a coherent left voice that not just explains how free market capitalism linked with how should I put it, state-sponsored austerity is actually diminishing the working class living standards and opportunities for working class communities. It's also disempowering of us all. And so management economics isn't going to cut it. It's transitional and transformational economics that we want. And that is what we tried to develop. I tried to develop as leader of the Labour Party. And that's exactly what the Peace and Justice Project's working on now. So I want to
Well,
work with you,
I'll pass.
Jan. So I enjoyed being in Greece with you, and hopefully I'll be in Greece again with you soon. The reason I can't be with you on your conference is that we're doing some very important work on building the left in Britain over that weekend, which I am under much demand to be at. So I'll be at those events. But I want to say that. We need to bring those on the left together that are serious about redistribution of power, redistribution of wealth, but also challenging the arms trade and challenging the narrative that there's no solution to the horrors of the conflicts in Gaza, in Ukraine, in Yemen, in Sudan, in Congo, other than more weapons and more wars. There isn't. There's another way, and that is the search for peace.
Keep doing what you're doing. We are doing the same thing. We're working together. Anyway, our paths have been parallel, haven't they? Here in Greece 10 years ago, we had this major victory. The people of Britain, through the election of Jeremy Corbyn to the leadership of the Labour Party, had their major glimmer of hope in 2015, 2016, especially
And can I
the
say a thank you to you, Yanis, for coming over to help us in our campaign in the recent general election? Because as
that's the duty. That's
the
the
audience
duty.
will
The
know,
choice.
I
It's a
was
duty.
removed from the Labour Party, and so they wouldn't allow the local Labour Party to choose a candidate for Islington North. And so I said, I think the people should choose. So I was put forward as an independent candidate, and thanks to your help and that help of many, many others, we won that election.
Well, it's a duty, not a choice for comrades. The way in which the deep establishment, even within the Labour Party, especially within the Labour Party, prefer to have somebody like Boris Johnson in power than Jeremy Corbyn. The way that in this country we have been demonized for sticking to our guns and supporting the anti-austerity drive to the end against our former comrades, like you have been doing, against the Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves monstrosity of the Labour Party. That is what we are here for. And I want to thank you on behalf of everybody in this theatre today for sticking to your guns and continuing, and also to pledge that we will continue along the parallel paths that we have been walking upon for quite some time now. And we can't wait to have you here in Greece in the next Congress. You were a keynote speaker in the first Congress of Mera 25. I'm extending on behalf of everybody in this room the invitation to be the keynote speaker again in the next Congress.
I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade.
Thank you very much, Yanis. And thank you to all our comrades for all the work they do in standing up against the far right and for decency, socialism, and social justice. Thank you.